Welcome to Meet the Candidates 2022, a voter education program brought to you by the Shakopee Chamber of Commerce. My name is Tim Zunker, and I'm the president of the Shakopee Chamber and Visitors Bureau. Our hope is that these candidate interviews and profiles will help you, the voter, understand your choices when it comes to the 2022 elections. We ask voters to arm themselves with the information necessary to make educated choices and to make casting your vote a priority. Please visit the Shakopee Chamber website at shakopee.org to find out more information about the upcoming election. And at this time, I'd like to introduce James Dulaney, who is running for Shakopee City Council. James, thank you for joining us today. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Tim, thank you for doing this. This is a great way for the voters to find out more about me. As far as myself, my name is James Dulaney. A lot of people call me Jim. You'll see that on my signs. I've lived in Shakopee now 19 years. My wife of over 32 years. We raised our 3 kids in Shakopee. We originally moved here because of the small town atmosphere and also for a job opportunity I received. In the area itself, I worked for 23 years with the same company. I love the work. It's fascinating. It's a blessing to get up and go out and work with the same individuals every day. It's a lot of fun in the lab. Prior to that, I did 10 years in the military. And in between the military and working for my current company, I did some consulting work with a startup out of Tennessee. I still keep in touch with individuals, two brilliant individuals, learn a lot from them. They're also Tennessee Vols fans. You can't go wrong with Tennessee Vols fans. Throughout the years, I've taught at various colleges and universities as far as adjunct professor for math and also for some engineering courses. Volunteer work, my kids were younger. I did Cub Scouts. I don't know if you call it Cub Master or what that was, but it was, I did that with my son. That was fun. That was more like herding cats a couple of times a month. Great memories of that. I think the big fun part for me, that was derby days with the cars. Basketball, the youth basketball for my daughter. I'm a perpetual wrestling parent. My kids did wrestling. And it's good to see where my son's teammates are now after college. It's great to see that they're progressing and getting on. Other volunteer work, I'm a member of the Father's House Church. I've been part of their media team since 2016. We basically get the service, the praise and worship, and the message out on Sunday to Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Then it goes up on TV during the week. As far as other volunteer activities, I'm a big STEM proponent. I love science, technology, engineering, math. It's one of the reasons I became an engineer. My kids were younger. I really was in the schools, volunteering, at the career days, career fairs, presenting in the classroom. Since then, I had the opportunity with the current company I work for to actually be part of the state science fair. Those projects are really cool, really fun to be a part of. The kids present. Haven't done that in the last 2 years because, of course, COVID hit. God willing, I'll be able to go do that again in person next year. My current employer gives out shirts when we do that. I think I have a closet full of shirts now, multicolors. Other activities in the community. I'm a part of Scott County GOP. I got politically active back in 2016. That was my first time, and seeing the grassroots level of politics, it pulled me in. It was great conversations. At that time, I became a delegate alternate for Scott County. Again, Scott County GOP. Have since become Precinct 3 captain. It's given me the opportunity to go to some local conventions, some state conventions, meet some of the candidates running for national local office across the state, which is great conversations, meeting like-minded, in some cases not like-minded people. But I've never had a bad experience. It's always been fun meeting, talking to other people across the state. That's it. That's all about me.
Great. Thank you, James. Why are you running for city council?
This is my second time. It definitely, some people grow tomatoes in the backyard, and I guess I run for city council. There's 2 reasons. One, I enjoy giving back to my community. This for me is a calling. When I joined the military, that was a calling for me. My kids are now grown. I love volunteering. I think this is a way to give back to the community. But my 3 reasons for running have not changed. If you look back, when I originally ran, it was taxes, it was debt, it was our voices not being heard by the current city council members. That has not changed. I still think that still applies today. If you look at our taxes, specifically, we're going to talk about property tax. We could talk about a full tax. I'm sure everybody's escrow account grew from the levies, which I hear is being definitely put to good use of classrooms. sizes are smaller, and they're being able to hire the teachers they need to hire. But if you look at just the property tax exclusively or specifically, it's grown 45% since 2005, 7% in the last year. It's expected to grow again in the coming year, which is a concern. Along the same time, since our city debt has increased, the biggest jump was 2016, and it's leveled out a little bit, but then it's now higher than it was back in 2016. I think prior to that, it was on a downward trend. We grew our infrastructure, which was needed, but if you look overall, it's still sloping up or increasing. So that's my other concern. My third concern, as far as our voices not being heard, that has not changed. And it goes back to the first two. If you look at votes on, I guess, debts and taxes, if you look at TIFs, abatements, anything to do with finances, it's typically a 4-to-1 vote. If you look back over the last year, last 2 years, if you go back to when I initially ran the first time, that has not changed. It still holds. And that's concerning. If you, I think I've used this before, if you've asked the same 5 people how to get from here, to Chick-fil-A in Burnsville, you would hope to get 5 different answers, or at least 3 different answers. But the fact that we always get a 4-to-1 vote when it's time to get a levy, get a bond, get a TIF, something that increases the burden on the residents, is always a 4-to-1 vote, and that is a concern.
Great, thank you, James.
Now,
What would you change? Oh,
can I add to that? Now, you're probably saying, okay, great, those are my concerns, but what can we do about that? You're running for city council. What do you propose? Well, for the first one, for the taxes, I'm proposing that first we look at our needs versus our wants. We want to make sure the residents get the best value for the tax dollars being paid. I was really surprised at one of the current meetings when that actually came up. I think it was a vote about a $150,000 or $200,000 contract, and one of the council members actually asked for staff to come back and show what that money was, what we're getting, what value we're getting for that money. And I applaud that. That should be applied to everything every time we make a decision about spending the city's money. Now, as far as the debt, if you had a family member that you were giving money to and they were increasing their debt year over year, we would have an intervention. Well, it's time we had an intervention with the city to get our debt under control. We don't have to take one bond and again vote for one bond before another bond pays off. That's just basically increasing the debt the city owes. Now, as far as what we can do about our voices not being heard, our city is 60, 70% developed. That's the numbers I checked last time. We're 43,000, 45,000 as far as population. I think it's time to go to wards. I think wards would allow all parts of the city's voice to be heard, especially on decisions that impact the city as a whole, but specifically neighborhood within the city itself. I hope I didn't burn too much time.
No,
sometimes I get
all
the
right.
ramble. I ramble too much. Just let me know.
That's all right. This is your opportunity to speak to the voters. So what would you change about how the way Shakopee City government works?
Well, wards. And I would change wards. Our city would need to go to wards. I think we're big enough that we should go to wards. It would probably take a change in the city charter. I don't know, look at the camera. Look at you. I think it would take a change in the city charter and probably require a vote from the citizens. But I think it's time for us to go to wards. I can give you some great examples. If you look at, I live over by Canterbury. If you look over by Canterbury, we've grown our infrastructure down through there. We have a lot of businesses, a lot of zoning that went in to get those in. They've provided jobs for the community. They provided a growth in our tax base. But little decisions were made, I don't think they were thought through fully. One of the, I guess, artifacts of that was we have, if you have those types of industries in the city, then you're going to have trucks and truck drivers. And just north of 101, I think Southville Park is across one of our big employers. Truck drivers were parking there. I guess you can't park the rigs back. They must live in the city. They can't park the rigs on the street, so they park them there, and there was cars there. And it's been that way for a while, and I think it finally came to the city council's attention. And I watched the meeting just to see what was going to happen with the vote. And the vote was to put signs to, I guess, for no parking to be there. Well, that's a Band-Aid. That's not a solution. You basically stalled solving the problem. You're shifting it back to the community. I'm almost certain within 6 months to a year, we're going to be something else get brought up similar where there's trucks now parked somewhere else in the city. I was expecting more of a solution. And I think if you had somebody, if we were broken up in the wards and you had somebody from that part of our city, they could probably have voiced that concern saying, hey, maybe we need to get to a permanent fix. Even while we were developing down to 101, putting those businesses in, they may have brought that up. Well, we're going to have an artifact of this. We got trucks and truck drivers and do something about that. And I could give you some other examples, but I know we're short of time. So,
Great, thank you. Coming out of the pandemic, businesses are being affected by lower labor participation, inflation, and supply chain issues. What, if anything, can the city do to help assist businesses as we come out of the COVID-19 pandemic?
well, two things. First, if there's any mandates still in place that the city may have had any hands in, they need to be removed by now. If there's any state or city mandates that are still keeping businesses from providing goods and services and getting their profits or hitting their bottom lines, those should be removed. I think we're well past that point. I wasn't a fan of putting them in the first place. That's a whole nother discussion. I think that's first and foremost. Second, the city can probably foster or at least get, even with the chamber itself, get a hiring fair together. I think that would go a long way of getting employers and employees together. I get notifications all the time of the cities north of here having hiring fairs. I think maybe our city needs to do the same thing. We already have a cross-section of people, 43, 45,000 people strong. There's a cross-section of skill sets and people available to fill jobs and are probably looking for jobs. We need to just get those employers and employees together, even from outside the city, getting employers and employees together within our city. I think that's one of the biggest things the city can do at this point.
Great, thank you. What do you see as the most important issues facing Shakopee, and what would you do to address them?
Well, you think I would say taxes, debt, and not listing our concerns, but I'm gonna say crime, and not because I'm fearful of walking out my front door. It's not that. Our Chief Tate does a great job. Our police officers do a great job. The city and staff do a great job making sure our public safety is priority. So that's not a concern. If you look at our public safety, in the last 20 years, I think our crime rate has dropped from 14% down to 5%. I think it was the last publication that was put out. But specifically, who's perpetrating the crimes? Shakopee has become a basically entertainment destination. We have Valley Fair, we have Canterbury, we have the casinos. We just had Rhythm on the Rails. We brought a lot of people into the city. Well, that changes your population. And 75% of the crimes are committed by people that don't live in the city. Unfortunately, when 911 gets dialed, our police officers respond. And that's costing us, the taxpayers, money to do that. So one of the things I've been a proponent of, I didn't propose this, actually talked to somebody else, is adding a fee to the various venues, 25 cents, maybe like on a ticket to Valley Fair or a ticket to Canterbury or a ticket to some of the other venues. And just give you an example, Valley Fair gets over $1 million plus every year, people coming through the gates. That would be $250,000 going to the public safety only, not to anything else to the city, to help with their staffing, help with their equipment, to help, pay for their response over to anything that may happen at one of those venues. I think that's fair. Now you may hear some arguments coming from the venues themselves saying they already paid taxes. Well, the nature of their business is entertainment. So I think there needs to be some discussion back and forth from that, but I think that's something that needs to happen, and that's one of the things I'm proposing, or one of the things I'm for. That may take some legislative action. That's where you get your Eric Mortensons and your Eric Pratt involved to help, I guess, stir that at the state level. I think that's one of the things we need to go toward.
Great, thank you. What role should the city have in attracting new businesses to Shakopee or helping existing businesses expand?
Attracting. You heard me say before, and people have talked to me, no, I'm not a fan of tips and abatements. But I think our city has done a great job in getting our infrastructure together, listening to businesses, changing zoning, what needs to change zoning, but also listening to the residents. I think there was a survey put together for our downtown area. I think our city did listen. And you got activities happening down there, and it's fostering an area of growth where you're basically getting new businesses in. We have the Rhythm on the Rail. We just have I think, TAP 2022. And they got people into the city, but also they're taking advantage of the other businesses down in that area. I think it's one thing the city can do. I don't think the city itself can create, I guess, get businesses to come in other than that. I mean, again, I'm not a fan of tips and abatements, beginning to change my mind. I do listen. One of the abatements I, I always talk about, and I talk to people, I was actually educated on that. Somebody that was part of that coming into the city explained to me what they thought, why they thought they needed it at that time. The company itself that they attracted in is doing very well. They got 900 plus employees. I think 20 billion, I think if that number's right, in their revenue from the last years. And they're selling widget A and widget B. But they're definitely, at this time, don't need the $80,000 from city and county abatement going back. But I do understand the need for it at that time. But, the person I was talking to was even saying, well, hey, he wasn't aware that it was even still ongoing. So maybe we need to have some kind of escape clause or things like that. I don't know if that's legal, but how to get that in. So I don't think the city as a whole can do anything other than, grow infrastructure, listen to the residents, listen to the businesses. Overall, it's done a great job. Our city's growing. We have, our great single-family housing, great multi-family housing, duplexes. So that's attracting people in. We have great venues, our parks, our rec, our walking trails. So I think you're getting people in that will fill those jobs. So that's attracting employers in. I think we're well situated off 169. So if you do need, your supply chain in and out, I think that's beneficial for business travel. We're sitting right next to the airports in the Twin Cities. Even for medical, we have a great medical establishment here that's actually growing. So I think our city itself is set pretty much to attract businesses in, and also attract employees in that either want to work here and live here, or live here and work outside the city itself.
Great. Thank you, James. Now you have an opportunity to give your closing statement and message to the voters.
Well, actually, I had to jot this down so I wouldn't forget it. Two things. First, make sure you get out and vote. I don't know which way to look. Make sure you get out and vote, because it's important. If anything in the last 2 years has shown us across our great nation, even within our city itself, or even within our state itself, is elections have consequences. You want to know who you're voting for so that when things happen, they are acting on the city's citizens and residents' behalf. I think that's key. Make sure you know who you're voting for up and down the ticket. Now, if I am elected, if you elect me as your next city councilman, city council person, I have 4 priorities. I wrote those down so I wouldn't forget them. One, to make sure we get to a reasonable and stable property tax. I think that's important. I think we need to get that stabilized. Maybe look for other sources of funding, but we definitely need to get that stabilized. Ensuring the residents receive good value for their tax dollars spent, I think that's also important. Like I said, I think I saw that discussion actually happen in one of the city council meetings, what needs to happen more often, maybe, even if it's happening outside before the meeting occurs, when staff gets together and gets the packets and look through them. My third priority would be to maintain public safety and to maintain our public infrastructure. I think that's key. Everybody wants to feel safe and be safe in their own communities, but also we want to make sure our roads are intact, our infrastructure is intact. So I think that's important. And then the fourth priority of mine would be to always be open and honest and available for the citizens. I'm a little old school. I mean, we have all this wonderful technology. If you go online, you can see if you need to talk to city council members, you can text them, phone them, email them. But also, I think there need to be office hours, even if it's just a couple hours a week where people can come and sit down across from you, so you can actually get that interaction, that face-to-face, where you can see that body language, understand. I've watched some of the city council meetings where people will come in and have their concerns. I hope I'm not burning much time here. They have their concerns, and I'm like, that should have happened. They should have been able to come to you prior to the meeting and sit across from you and say, hey, this is my concern. You're putting a park under power lines over here. Maybe you guys need to go take a look at that, and see, get a safety engineer to stop through. Maybe this is not a great idea. I saw another gentleman who was talking about he was getting too much solicitation as far as mail. I said, well, maybe that'd been a good. I know I'm happy that he brought it to the council, but the council should also have been available outside of that. So it's one of the things I'm looking forward to doing, always being honest, open, and available to the citizens. And that's it. That's my time.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, the views expressed in these interviews are those of the candidates, not those of the Chamber and Visitors Bureau. The Chamber is sponsoring these events as a service to the community and has gone to great lengths to ensure the objectivity. The Chamber does not endorse any candidate, but seeks to provide you, the citizens and voters of Shakopee, with the information you need to make an informed choice. The Shakopee Chamber and Visitors Bureau extends a sincere thank you to the candidates. We appreciate your time and service to our community by running for office. You're performing an important service to us all. Again, thank you for joining us for this edition of Meet the Candidates 2022. Please join us September 29th at River Valley Church for our candidate forum. Please visit the Shakopee Chamber website at shakopee.org for more information. Thank you. Thank you, James.
Well, thanks for having me.